Welcome aboard. This is the news review segment, and that's what we're doing now. We're reviewing the various stories making waves and captured in the newspapers. But a gentle reminder that this segment is always brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, and they're offering free prostate screening and free fertility screening for women at their various locations. Here in Accra, you can find them on the Spintex Road, opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Kronuma Buenhia, behind the Angel Educational Complex. In Takrade, Anaji Estate. In Tema, Community 22. In Techiman, Hanswa, and in Esiama, in Zima. And here are their call lines: 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. This morning, I will be joined by two gentlemen, Kojo Poku, who is an energy analyst, and Dr. Wisdom Dogbe, also a financial analyst, will be joining us to get into the various stories. But before they join me, let me just take a quick look at the various stories captured on the front pages of the various newspapers, starting with the Daily Graphic. It says, Nkrumah Not So Nation's founder, and this came up on the Founders' Day. The president stirred up some debate on who should be recognized as the founder of this great country. And it shouldn't be just Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Saja for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And then Road to Election 2024, experts write off minority parties. Stakeholders call for more housing fares, and this is a Daily Graphic newspaper. Women heads of electoral bodies must consolidate democracy, according to Jean Mensah. When my guests join me, we'll get into the stories and actually review them. I'm just sharing the headlines or the banner stories with you. On the Daily Guide newspaper, NPP launches manifesto on the 18th of August. And I mean, we are in an election year, nearly 4 months or so before election 2024. And it's just a good time to get surgical with what the campaigns or the promises are about. Okay, so I have done my best, that is according to Akufo-Addo, and we'll have constant electricity supply. I think my first guest joins me now, Dr. Wisdom Dogbe, who's a financial analyst. Doc, good morning, and it's good to see you.
Good to see you, sweetie. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I hope you are too.
You're wonderful.
Right.
Thanks for asking.
So of all the things happening in this country and around the world, which of them do you want to share your thoughts with? You have a minute or two to get into that.
Sweetie, I read that the Ministry of Health has begun recruiting over 15,000 nurses and midwives, as announced by the health minister. I think it was long overdue because I know of stories where new nurses have completed the education and just sitting at home because they can't find employment. So I will start on the positive side that this is definitely great news for our nurses and midwives who have been unemployed for a long period of time. And this will also address staff shortages in the hospitals across the country. For a very long time now, sweetie, Ghana has been in this situation where there is a high demand, for healthcare facilities and medical workers. And so by increasing the number of nurses and midwives, hopefully the ministry can ensure better access to healthcare services for the people of Ghana. And sweetie, it is also my hope that this will lead to improved service delivery in the nation's hospitals and clinics, because when there is adequate staffing levels, I think that it can help reduce the waiting times and also improve patient care and enhance the overall healthcare outcomes of the nation, in the nation. And of course, the economic impact should be mentioned, sweetie. This can also have a positive impact on the economy. It is job opportunities becoming available to these nurses and midwives. So all good stuff. The only concern about this is that a handful of these nurses and midwives have been unemployed for a long period of time now. Why all of a sudden, just about 4 months to the election, the government is stepping in now, to employ them? Is this an election year gimmick just to get votes? Or is it a legitimate attempt to address the unemployment crisis in the country? I hope it is the latter, sweetie.
Well, thank you for those thoughts. I don't know if Kojo Poku has joined us yet. Okay, so let's get into the stories, Dr. Wisdom Dogbe. I'll start with this major story about Nkrumah Not So Nation's founder, according to the president, which has stirred a lot of debates. But let's get into the paper and read some for context, just in case some of our audience are not aware of what's happening. Nkrumah Not So Nation's founder, that is according to the president, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, and he's reignited the controversy over the founding of Ghana as a nation, arguing that, quote, the struggle of our nation's freedom was a collective effort spanning several generations. He consequently stated his complete rejection of any theory that projected and credited Ghana's first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, as the founder of the nation. And so, I mean, I think in 2019, the celebration of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's birthday was changed, and now we celebrate Founders Day. And yesterday, I listened to a bit of the vice president or the flag bearer of the NPP, and he also was selling this idea that the UGCC or the values of the UGCC is what Ghana has been built on. And so this whole ideology of Nkrumahization or Nkrumah whatever should not be given more credence than the work of the Big Six. I don't know how that sits with you, Doc.
So whether the nation was founded by Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah alone or not, we need to be very clear, right, about the pivotal role that he played and give him that sole recognition as we give credit to the other forefathers, who played various roles in the freedom fight. I think the president could have done more to better, recognize Nkrumah in his Founders Day speech. Let me ask you this quickly. You don't need to answer. Do you know what J.B. Dankwa was doing when Nkrumah was fighting for our independence? He was busy conniving with our oppressors against Nkrumah's self-government now. He even wrote a letter. J.B. Dankwa, he wrote a letter on October 10th, 1951 to our colonial masters, referring to Nkrumah's fight for independence as tricks. And he referred to Nkrumah as that man. And I showed our colonial masters that him himself and the UGCC, they have rejected Nkrumah's efforts and referred to the effort for independence as an invitation to criminal conspiracy, against law and order. I have a copy of that letter to today. Now, still in the late 1950s, I believe, it was reported in one of the Ghanaian newspapers that same J.B. Dankwa held a conference in his home in Accra, where the National Liberation Movement and its allies, they demanded that the Queen of England's head be on our national currency instead of that of Nkrumah. So why should we be surprised that the descendants of J.B. Dankwa continue to discredit Dr. Kwame Nkrumah at every turn, sweetie? We're not surprised. But here's my thinking quickly. Instead of arguing about if Ghana had one or more founders, right? My opinion is that we should rather be reflecting on our journey as a nation. What have we achieved since our founder exited the stage? What are we today? How does that compare with the vision and the dreams and the aspirations that his founders had for the nation? Look, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and his comrades in the 1940s, sweetie,
right,
they became involved in the nationalist movement, and they pushed for self-rule, which was achieved in 1957, as we all know. From that time to today, Ghanaians are still waiting for economic freedom. And we have these recent leaders who love to criticize Nkrumah, but they will not lead a fight for economic independence, right?
Right.
But rather make the plight of our people worse. Look, last point.
Okay.
When we became the first African country south of the Sahara to gain independence from colonial rule, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah implemented several policies and government programs aimed at modernizing Ghana and improving the lives of Ghanaians. The chief among these policies were industrialization, improving healthcare and education and infrastructure development. Today, our industrial sector is a case on its own. Our healthcare system needs medication by itself. And the pace of our infrastructure development, is quite unfortunately not where we should be by now. Quickly, last one. When it comes to the economic development, right? And I'll finish on this. Nkrumah's policies and the Volta River project, right, which is accounting for 30% of the country's electricity production today. If any other president had done even 20% to contribute to our energy needs, would we have done so today? That's a question we should ask ourselves.
That's a question I'd like to carry forward and throw to Kojo Poku. But hi, Kojo, thank
Well,
you for
I
joining.
honestly don't. Good morning, my dear. I don't know where he's coming up with.
Allow me to bring you in. Kojo, let me bring you in officially. Just hold on, calm down. We are reviewing the news story about the president saying not to.
Well, I agree, but since he let off and trying to say, how can he talk about doom? So whose light goes off today? I mean, how can he talk about doom? So I mean,
well,
let's
Kojo,
let the past be the past.
It's good to have you join the program. I'll give you a minute to get into whatever topical issue you want to get to. And the story we are reviewing is the statement of the president that although the work of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah cannot be underestimated, he's not the sole founder of the country. And so your minutes take, right, and then we get into that story.
Well, that's fine, Ms. Abuchi. I don't want us to do that. Let's get straight into the review, and then I think it's better I address some of the things that my brother said. Look, it's a debate. I think that whether Nkrumah is the sole founder or not, it's a debate. Let's also not forget that there is a political...
It's a debate?
Yeah, it's a debate.
That's just resurfaced after, what, over 50 years?
Yes, but the point is that history, look, a lot of us were thought that Nkrumah was the founder of the country. A lot of people were taught that until when this whole issue came up, and a lot of debates have come up, a lot of research people have read and found out that there were a lot that happens before Nkrumah was brought in by the party at the time. Is it GC? What, I can't remember the name. The Ghana, the Convention People's Party, right? They brought him in as secretary. He couldn't get on with them. He now went on his own, formed CPP, and basically there were a lot of development and thereafter. The point is, before he came in from London, the people that had formed the Convention People's Party were here doing a lot before he came in. Now, yes, he came in and had the drive. And when they said that independence gradually, he said, no, independence now. But everybody was talking about independence. He wasn't the one that came. It's not like he came and nobody was talking about independence and he came and said, look, you guys, you need independence. That's not true. So the point I'm saying is that it's a debate and it's a collective effort, as the president put it. Now, the CPP and history in Ghana has made it look like independence. When we were kids, that's what we were taught, that Ghana's independence was by Nkrumah. And the rest of everybody was shoved aside. The big six, as we know them today, was never mentioned in most of history. So what I'm saying is that it's a debate. We should understand the tradition that Nana Addo is coming from. Nana Addo is from the UP tradition. The UP tradition, if you listen to his statement, he said that though after all that Nkrumah did post-independence, we have still given him his birthday as a holiday. He did a lot to the UP tradition. He prosecuted them, he jailed them, most of them died in jail. So there is a lot. Nkrumah is the only president in Ghana who went to parliament and made this country a one-party state. Okay. So look, the issue is more political than most. So let's not, that's why I started out by saying that it's a debate, right?
All right.
Who did what and whose contribution was what is a debate.
Point made. I only wonder if this is the right time to be resurrecting this debate that you say it is. After years,
at any point,
should we be uniting the country? Hold on, Kojo. Should we be uniting the country? Should we be uniting the country towards our quest for development? And at this point on this development trajectory, where we are right now, is this what we need? To be resurrecting debate on who founded the country, rather than uniting the country on the history?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Hold on for me, Kojo. You just landed. Kojo, hold on for me, please. Dr. Wisdom Dogbe, your take now.
Look, Sudi, we should rather take a pause, right, and reflect on how much we have built on the legacy of our founding fathers, right? Or have we deviated from their vision for the nation? And have we turned prosperity for all to poverty for most? That is what we should care about, and not about when did Nkrumah come. A simple question I'll ask you: when you and I will start a business, and eventually you lose faith in the business and you leave, and I take this across the finish line, you don't come back to take credit for it, especially when you are working with my competitors to get me out of business, to get me to fail. You don't come back to take credit for that. That's the reason why I strongly believe that we're not giving Nkrumah the
All right.
due.
Well,
Thank you, Doug.
that part
Yeah.
of history, let me quickly correct this. That part of history that you guys tend to put is not true. Nobody worked with the colonials to kick Nkrumah out. Whatever that was, hold on, you made your point, let me finish. If you read the history, all the other parties that came up, the UP, the People Conventions, the Convention People's Party, and all that came up, nobody worked with the colonials to kick Nkrumah out. Whatever Nkrumah was involved in was Nkrumah stuff that he was involved in. What everybody is saying is that when you talk about unity, where is the division in this country? I don't get when people say that we should be united. United, where are we divided? Please, somebody should tell me where we are divided.
Point made.
We are a united country. The fact that everybody keeps hearing MPP, NDC doesn't mean that we are divided. You should go to a restaurant and meet Haruna and Afenyo having dinner and laughing it off. Who is divided?
Kojo, thank you for those thoughts. Let's do some other stories now. I'm still on the Daily Graphic newspaper on page 13. Now, women heads of electoral bodies must consolidate democracy. That is according to Jean Mensah. And I'll get into just a bit of that story. The chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Jean Mensah, has called for stronger collaboration and knowledge sharing among female leaders of election management bodies across Africa to help consolidate democratic governance on the continent. And she said, given the increasing challenges and complexities in election management, the establishment of a strong network of women leaders in election management would help to deepen the culture of peer learning and sharing the best practices for effective election management. Stakeholders call for more housing fairs. Let me quickly run through this paper, and then after your review, we'll get into another paper now. NPP to launch manifesto on August 18th. Yes, we're all looking forward to that, so we can have we can dissect it and bisect and analyze what they are promising this country after 8 years of being in office. We'll resist attempts to rewrite nation's history. That is according to former President John Dramani Mahama. Stop bastardizing state institutions. That's a Presby clerk, Emmanuel Ebo Hodgson. Government's failure in showing markets. Professor Akufo-Addo, let me get into this story as well. The running mate of the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, Professor Nana Jane Akufo-Addo, has stated that the true state of Ghana's economy is evident in the markets. She said the high cost of food products and other items show that the government has failed the nation. Quote, we all go to the market and therefore we know how expensive and unbearable the cost of items, including food products, have become, she stated. And she was in the Mankesi markets during campaign activities, and she's touching on development in the market and the Mankesi area, and noting that redesigning and reconstruction of modern markets remain one of the key points of the NDC's next government if they're given the mandate. 35 NGOs undergo health training. Odumasi residents get potable water. VTF school students on work readiness. And on the back page, I'll prioritize special education, according to Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, and BOSS supports 50 students at UMAT. Let me see if there's one more story to add, and then I'll come to you, gentlemen. Public lecture in honor of Osabere Makwesiata II held. Don't compromise your future. That's according to Mensa Otabil advising the youth. All right, so that's that for the Daily Graphic newspaper. Let me start with you, Dr. Wisdom Dugbe.
So
well, he's been talking for far too long. Why don't you start with me? I just came on.
Let me moderate this, please. I'll come to you briefly. Thank you, Kojo.
Kojo is a case, man.
But he's been talking for the last 2 hours. I wasn't here. Why do you want to start with him?
Kojo, I'll be brief. Look, I think Professor Jane Akufo-Addo, I think she's very right, sweetie. I used to buy a tuber of yam in the African store for like $20 or even $15. Now I buy that for $40. And when I ask the people at the African store, why is it so expensive these days? They ask me a very simple question. Do you know how much we buy it in Ghana, right? They ship it from Ghana and bring it over here. So the challenge is that this administration, they've caused the economic crisis. It is going beyond the borders of Ghana. It is impacting those of us over here as well. So Kojo, I just want you to know that I know you'll respond to that. But let me talk quickly about the manifesto item, right? When it comes to the MPP's upcoming manifesto launch, sweetie, I would just be super blunt with you on this one that I'm not entirely hopeful or optimistic about, the Baumia Napo ticket. I know that many Ghanaians had very high hopes for Dr. Baumia and President Akufo-Addo when they first won the elections. Considering their profiles, right, some of us thought that they would deal with corruption and pursue economic policies that will lead to equal opportunity and prosperity for all. But I think it is fair to say that they have failed Ghanaians miserably in this regard. And they've even made the lives of the average Ghanaian worse, sweetie. And Dr. Baumia, he was the head of the Economic Management Committee, and he supervised one of the monumental economic failures in the country. So I cannot in good conscience trust him to lead the nation to economic freedom. That's just me.
Right.
And that is why I'm not very enthusiastic, to read what they will have in their manifesto, because as the saying goes, talk is cheap, and anyone at all can write a compelling sentence. But I would still like to learn about, what their vision and values are. What is their ideology when it comes to social justice and economic prosperity and protecting our democracy? And I also want to know what their policy priorities are in terms of the economy. That is, what are their strategies for economic growth, really, and addressing unemployment? And what are their taxation policies and measures that they will take to address income inequality in the country? And sweetie, I will also be looking to learn about their proposals for improving healthcare access, right?
Right.
And the affordability and quality of healthcare. Look, our nation's healthcare facilities, they need a facelift. We need new state-of-the-art equipment, medication and healthcare workers. What is their plan to address this gap? What is their plan to improve SHS policy and education in general? You can't just say we are the ones that introduce it. This thing needs to be improved. So what is their plan to improve it? What are their priorities, when it comes to infrastructure development and addressing the environmental and also climate change issues? Most importantly, sweetie, I would like to learn about their plan to deal with corruption, the likes of which we may have never seen before in our nation. What is their policy in addressing this corruption and nepotism? And the lack of accountability.
Doc, I guess that's why some of us are really looking forward to this reading the manifesto, so we see what's in it, right? So let's just wait and see. Kojopoku.
But so the talk is cheap.
I hope you give me the same time. I hope you give me the same time for you to start talking about African market.
You spent about 10 seconds of your time already, Kojo.
Well, that's fine. I have not spent anything. Please let me get into it. This gentleman sits in the USA, right? He's talking about African market, tuber of yam. Please, let's not go there. You see, I honestly, mostly would think that you will come into this conversation and help us educate Ghanaians about the hardship around the world. In the US today, my wife is there as I speak in New Jersey, Old Bridge. When she's been out of the US for the last 4 years and she went back on holiday, the same amount of money that she used to spend on a bag of groceries cannot even get anything in the market today. Everything is 3 times the price in ShopRite, in Walmart, and in all the shops in America. You can tell me if I'm lying. You should tell people the truth. Thank you. So if that's the truth, why are you talking about tuber of yam in African market?
I just said that is false.
Hold on. Let me finish, please. Look, in some European countries, when you go to the shop to try and get oil, and you want to buy 2 bottles of oil, they will only let you get 1 bottle of oil. They will not give you 2 bottles of oil. And that is going on today in some European countries. They are rationing food because there isn't enough for everybody. Left alone the high prices of these foods on the international market. Food prices is not only unique to Ghana. So please, let's not anybody go to markets and come and do food politics here. It's all around the world. Now, let me move on. My brother, listen. If you want to know about the ideologies of the MPP, please go on the internet and Google. We are not going to launch a manifesto to talk about ideologies. We are going to launch a manifesto to tell Ghanaians about the good work that we are going to do. And Ms. Abuchi, please don't say that after 8 years of being in power, we are going to have a new leader. Every leader has his own ideologies. Every leader has his own vision.
But is this leader not coming from the same party?
This leader is not president. This leader is not.
Hold on, Kojo. This leader has been a vice president.
I know what you're going to say. Let me land.
He is still the head of the economic management team.
The economic management team has no. Please let me land. This leader The economic management team has no constitutional provision. The economic management team has no constitutional powers. Let me land, please. This leader is not a president. The president is the one who forms the head of the manifesto team. He's the one who puts his vision out there, okay? Now, we've had 8 years of Nana Addo, and let me put this out there. The NDC, John Mahama, who wants to come back to be president, in 2012, he had a manifesto. He only achieved 20% of his manifesto in 2012. His manifesto that he now put out, 20% of what he achieved. 20%, so sorry, 23%. John Mahama only achieved 23% of his manifesto that he put out in 2012. Let me finish. Then the MPP achieved 83% of their 2016 manifesto. We've achieved 80% of our 2020 manifesto. So please, the records are there. That is why, hold on, let me land, please.
No, you're saying things I need to fact check. I'm saying to you that I'm curious to know what yardstick you're measuring this achievement or accomplishment
yardstick we are measuring is things that are in a manifesto. He gave about 263 promises in his manifesto. He only did about 20-something, about 40-something of them. That is the yardstick. We've taken a manifesto, we've itemized all the things he promised and the things he delivered. Those are the yardstick we are using. What other yardstick do you use to measure manifestos? Things you promise and things you deliver. Now, let me finish, please. Let me finish.
You have just a few seconds to wrap up, right?
On healthcare. You guys keep talking about healthcare as in we've not done anything. The MPP government has built over 60 hospitals around the country. That's not inclusive of the Agenda 111. We've built over 400 chief compounds around the country. So please, let's not even come. That is why it's a very simple conversation. Dr. Mahmoud Baumia is saying that if Mr. Mahama thinks that he's done well, let's debate. Let's put the data out there. It's very simple.
All right.
You are saying that I've not done well. I'm saying I've done well.
Kojo, your point has been made. Thank you.
Sorry, let's correct Kojo quickly before we move on. If you talk about the cost of food, right, you need to talk about the inflation on the food prices.
Madam, don't change the conversation. What inflation? Cost of food is cost of food. When you mention a tuber of yam, did you factor inflation? Let's stop confusing people.
Of course.
Food is food.
We listen to you uninterrupted. Kojo Poku, we listen to you uninterrupted. Let's, Dr. Wisdom, get through his train of thoughts.
The inflation rate in the United States is under 3%. Kojo, what is the inflation rate in Ghana? These are the things that determine the cost of food, the cost of living. And it's important that when we mention this on national television, we explain this to the average consumer so they can understand. It makes absolutely, let me choose my words well, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense to say the cost of food, inflation rate in the US is the same as Ghana. Look at the cost of food. And let me ask you this quickly. You mentioned that Mahama achieved only 20% of his promises and all of that stuff. I'm not going to go into those numbers with you, but simply ask yourself, what was the price of a Olonka of Gary in 2016 before Baumia and Akufo-Addo came to power? What is the price of the same food today? That is what people care about. It's not a matter of coming on TV and talking about numbers, throwing around numbers. The people care about what is impacting their pocketbooks. They care about how they put food on the table. They care about how they pay for school supplies. That's what we should be talking about.
Well, because of the good government of Nana Addo and Baumia, nobody pays for food supplies. Senior high school is free. Primary school is free. So that's the problem. Now that it's so free, you guys want to take credit for it.
Let's get into other newspapers. The Daily Guide newspaper, on the front page, we will have constant electricity supply. That is according to Herbert Scrapper. NPP, of course, we got into the story about the launch of the manifesto on August 18th. I have done my best, according to the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Gold exports to hit $10 billion by end of 2024. And the vice president and flag bearer of the NPP saying, let's stick to our founding fathers' ideals. And then Michael Kwe Jr. assists 570 WASI students. And there's a photo there of him presenting the check to the headmistress of Kwabenya Community High School. What is Herbert Krapper saying this morning? The Minister for State at the Ministry of Energy, Herbert Krapper, has assured Ghanaians of uninterrupted power supply. Speaking during a working visit to a number of power-producing plants in the Abuazi Energy Enclave, Second D, in the Western region, the minister said the Ghanaian people rely on us, count on us to make sure that the lights are on and it comes from the power generation. We will also ensure that the power is on. I'll put a pin in that and go to the story about the president saying he's done his best. Far from what his political opponents and critics think and say of him, President Akufo-Addo is proud of how he... Is this an editorial? Okay, so, quote, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to have served as president, not once but twice. And I've done my best, especially in steering the ship of state through the deeply troubled times of the COVID-19 pandemic and its aftermath," was how he put it. That is the president speaking when he spoke at the lunch held in honor of senior citizens as part of events to mark Founders Day celebration yesterday. I mean, he's just basically saying that given the circumstances, he's done the best that he can do or could have done or anyone could have done in his position. That is the president of the country speaking. Let me do some other stories before I come to you. 2-4 marks Akufo-Addo in London. The rich Asante culture and traditions, which dates back to over 4 centuries, was showcased in public in London, in the United Kingdom, on Sunday, August 4th, 2024. And this was when the 16th occupant of the Golden Stool of Asante Man, Otufo Setutu II, made history by organizing a mammoth quote, Akufo-Addo Festival in London. And I think it's worthy of commending, because to celebrate and showcase our rich culture like that in the UK is... it's no small feat, I say. Let's stick to our founding fathers' ideals. That is the vice president speaking now. And he's encouraged the country's youth to uphold the values and enduring principles of Ghana's founding fathers. He believes that this will help propel the nation's growth and development. And he was speaking at a seminar to mark the 77th anniversary of the founding of the United Gold Coast Convention, that is the UGCC, put together by the Council of Elders of the ruling New Patriotic Party in Accra over the weekend. And when you go into some of the things he said, he also sort of reiterates that we should be focusing on the ideals and values and principles of this United Gold Coast Convention and not just project one sole person as the founding father. And you know who we're there talking about, Osajefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. New Shippers Authority law, stakeholders hopeful of improved services, bandwidth global generation partner to create 1 million jobs in Africa. UCC impasse resolved. Oh yeah, that issue about, let me get into the story. The impasse between the council chairman of the University of Cape Coast, Professor S.H. Professor S.H. Amanu, and the rest of the university community over the termination of the appointment of the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Johnson Yako Bwampong, has been resolved. The Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, which is the regulator of tertiary institutions in the country, has rewritten to the Vice-Chancellor asking him to remain in office while the regulator of the tertiary institution remain in office while all the issues about his appointment are looked into. Dr. Baumia doubling down on policy while raising the bar in ethical campaign strategies. And on the back page, Sancho could start season as striker. And Ambassador Kweku sweeps for Ghana sports. And Ancelotti not worried about real pre-season form. These stories from the Daily Guide newspapers for your quick review, starting with you, Kojo Poku. And let's make it as brief as possible.
Well, thank you very much. I think the lights are on. The lights are going to be on.
Let me just add, I'm sorry. Let me just chip in that yesterday I experienced power outage.
Yeah, that's fine. It's nothing new in this country. From independence till now, lights always go off.
You were going to say the lights are on. You just said the lights are on.
Nobody said your light will never go off. Please, let's stop this cheap politics. Nobody said your light will never go off.
I'm not playing politics with you. I'm just giving you information. It's a fact. Yesterday I experienced
your
power
lights
outage.
are on, my dear. How long was your light on for?
It was off for about 6 hours.
Okay, did you call anyone to find out why your light was off?
Go on with your
Did you? I said,
go
it's a
on
simple
with your
question.
take.
Did you call anyone?
I'm not answering
Did
that.
you call anyone?
Please go on with your take.
Did you call anyone that your lights were off?
I would have to move on if you don't want to answer the question. If you don't want to get into your
Did you call
take.
anyone? Let's address this. Did you call anyone?
I'm asking you the question, Kojo.
No, I can also ask the question. If not, then I'll stay on this topic.
Then I'll move on to Dr. Wisdom Dogbe.
Okay, so please, when your light goes off, please call that number. And I'm sure you know that number. Call the ECG number and tell them your light is off. They will send an engineer and come and sort it out for you. The light going off can be a localized problem. Light goes off for all manner of reasons, okay? So if your light goes off, it's not anything that you're thinking of. To be sure, call the ECG customer service and the engineers will come and attend to you. That is how every citizen should behave. Now, the lights are going to be off, the lights are on. We don't have any generational problem in the country. Now, Ghana Gas is doing a maintenance. Ghana Gas is doing their scheduled maintenance. So Ghana Gas is not part of our energy mix now, full mix. But as you can see, though Ghana Gas is not supplying the 110 scarf daily that they do, our lights are still on. It means that there's been proper planning that has been put in place to make sure that these lights stay on. And it's going to be the same throughout for the foreseeable future. Now, let me go on into when our president says that he's done his best. Yes, he's done his very best. We all are living in a world where people are suffering all around the world. And I remember on this show, Mrs. Abuchi said that, the UK, there were no problems. Because the UK is suffering so much, you see what they did to their Prime Minister, Richard Sunak. They kicked him out with the majority for the Labour to come in and change things, even if they can.
I think you misquoted me. I never said there were
I'm
no
not
problems
misquoting you. You said that there was no double inflation. You said there was no double digit. You said there were no double-digit inflation in the UK. Those were your exact words.
I'm here
and
speaking to you, and you're saying something that you're saying.
No, but I can play back. I can play back the tape to you. You said there are no double digit inflation
round up
in the
your
UK.
thoughts. It's fine. Round up your thoughts.
Good. So we've done the Nanaado government has done well in the circumstances, as he said. We've built a lot of infrastructure. We've built a lot, and as the things are unraveling, people are beginning to see that there's a lot that has been done by the Nanaado government. Now you have a former president who will go to a region. Instead of going to tell them what he has done in that region, he goes and create problems and tell them that he'll create regions on tribal lines. And the people in that area has condemned it immensely. He also goes and says that he started a hospital in Garu. Next week, the team from Ministry of Health is going to go to Garu and let them show everybody where John Mahama said he started that hospital. He said he started a hospital in Garu and the MPP abandoned it. Next week, a team is going to Garu to go and find out where he started that hospital that was abandoned. So we will expose him again next week. So look, the MPP and then by Nanaado Adanko has done well. And I think on the 18th, the manifesto will come out and everybody will clap for everybody who has been part of this manifesto.
We look forward to that. Dr. Wisdom Dogbe.
Suri, I'll tell you, the president said he's done his best, but I'll tell you his best is not enough for the people of Ghana. Simple.
For you, no, say to me,
for the people of Ghana.
For the people of Ghana. Let's try and not interrupt.
Quickly, let me mention this, right? Unemployment is still very high. Go out there, talk to the youth, and you will see a lot of them are sitting at home. They are frustrated. They just need equal opportunity so they can get into the workforce. Unemployment is high. And then also, one of the things, if you ask me, sweetie, what bothers me a lot about Ghana's debt situation is this. We are all very excited about this whole IMF program. But has anybody stopped and asked the question, what will happen after the IMF program is over? In the media budget review, there was nothing substantially in that review that would talk about the structural reforms that we need to be sustainable economically. So what is the guarantee that we'll not fall back into deep recession? These are the things that we should be thinking about. Now, the other thing that you should always do, right, before you tap yourself on the back, whenever you take any job, ask yourself, what was the numbers? What was the performance of that team? How were they doing before you came in? And when you are leaving office, what are the numbers? You compare those, and that should tell you whether you've achieved something significant or not. I would beg to differ, Kojo. The people of Ghana are suffering. People need jobs. People are not able to even put food on the table. People cannot even afford rent. and not to talk about, home ownership in Ghana. This used to be something that most people in the middle class could even afford. But today, even the middle class in Ghana cannot afford homes. These are very important numbers that we should look at. And for somebody to say, I've done my best for the nation and we're here celebrating, I'm not saying that the president hasn't done anything. They've done something, but they've not done enough. And what the people care about is not about digitization and none of that. It's great. It's great for us to have these things. But if it doesn't transform into making the lives of the people better, you haven't done anything.
Okay.
Wisdom, when was the last time you were in Ghana?
I was here. I was there just this year. I was there in April. I came to Ghana twice.
Okay, you were in Ghana for how? You were in Ghana for how long?
Gentlemen, let's get into our last paper for the day. Doc, let's get into the last paper for the day. Graphic Business. On the front page, it says debt struggles continue despite restructuring. That is according to Fitch, the rating company. Bank of Ghana firmly positioned to mitigate external shocks and on promoting food security, leverage data tech in agric. That is the World Food Programme country director saying that. Let's get into the story on page 6 about debt struggles continuing despite restructuring. And I'll get there in a second. Here we are. So Ghana's economy is still faced with significant financing challenges despite the government's debt restructuring activities, a recent report by Fitch has indicated. As a result, the rating agency kept Ghana's rating at a level that indicates that the country is effectively in default on its foreign debts. This rating, known as RD, or restricted default, means Ghana has failed to make payments on some of its international loans, specifically its Eurobonds. And the report, however, noted that the country is making efforts to restructure its debt and work with international creditors to improve its financial situation. Just to add that, I hosted the Deputy Minister for Finance here, I think last week, on the back of that financial economic seminar. And I asked him his assessment of how he thinks we're doing as a people in terms of finance and economy. And he said that he will admit that the government is making some efforts, but the efforts are woefully inadequate. And I'm quoting him verbatim, unlike what Kojo tried to do. That's exactly his words. He said that their efforts are woefully inadequate. And I think that's very honest. But this story about persistent struggles, although the government says they are restructuring our debts, for your take, Dr. Adogbe.
So that's what I was saying earlier on, right? We've made some progress, but we really need to do more. After the IMF program, we're in trouble. If we don't have better structures in place, it's going to get to a point that the country can fall into recession, right? I think that, and when it comes to the credit rating, I think that Ghana's debt rating in general, right, often assessed by credit rating agencies like Fitch, I think it is mostly influenced by factors that reflect our economic stability, our financial health, and the nation's ability to meet the debt obligations itself. So if we build a more resilient economy as a matter of priority, we will have a better credit rating. For now, I think that we should focus on the debt restructuring and get it completed. That is very important, at least in the short term.
All right. Kojo Poku, your take.
Well, I don't know what century and what date you guys live in. The debt restructuring is done. I don't know what you look, who authored that Fitch report? Because now that we found out that the NDC can author a whole book, we need to be careful which some of these reports that we read, because if all you know is the NDC who authored it. Because I'll be surprised if Fitch will come out and say what they're saying. The debt restructuring is done. So who is saying that we are struggling restructuring debt? It's done. We have restructured all our debts. Now, how can somebody come out and say that? Let me land, please. How can somebody come out and say that there is a debt default when we have restructured the debt and postponed the repayment of the debt? Yes. So technically, we've been in default since about a year or two ago. We've been in default. Nobody's denying the fact that Ghana has been in default when it comes to debt, our debt payment. It's a known fact. And that is why we went out there to say that, look, under the IMF program, and we were asked to restructure all these debts, which we have successfully restructured all the debts. So look, for Fitch to come out and for this document to, this paper to put it out there as a debt struggles continues. What is the debt struggle? Look, for me, I just think that there is this ingenious way of people putting these stories out there to make things seem what they are not. My friend, Mr. Dogbe, mid-year budgets are not full-year budgets. Mid-year budget has its own ways of doing things. So the information you were looking for, wait till the November budget and you get that from that. Mid-year budget are not supposed to give you that information that you were talking about.
Gentlemen, we have to go, but I'll allow 30 seconds each for your final words. Dr. Addo.
I disagree with that. Mid-year budgets are supposed to tell the financial health of the nation mid-year. That is simple what it is. Why do we have to wait to the end of the year before we know how the nation is performing, Kojo? I don't think that's right at all.
All right,
yeah,
Kojo,
but it does tell you the financial health.
Kojo, what you
asked about was that what will be the plan or the fallback plan when we exit the IMF? That's what you said. You said the media budget does not tell you the fallback plan when we exit the IMF. And I'm telling you that. Let me finish. And I'm telling you that the media budget.
Investor confidence. You need to get that information with the street. And
Mr. Addo, you keep changing the goalposts.
The credit rating of the
Mr. Addo, you keep changing the goalposts. What I'm saying to you is that the media budget does not tell you what the exit plan when we come out of the IMF is.
That's all time will allow us, gentlemen, for the news review segment. No, I'm sorry, our time is up. We have to go. That was all we had for the news review segment, and always brought to you by Endpoints Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And my guests were Dr. Wisdom Dogbe, financial analyst, and Kojo Poku, also an energy analyst, joining me to get into the various stories captured in the newspapers. Mufta Nabila Abdullahi serves you AM Sports. Up next.